My name is Felix Rourde, and I've always been good at fixing things. Computers, cars, broken relationships. Well, maybe not that last one. But when my wife, Elin, texted me from what was supposed to be her solo business trip to Bali, saying she'd run into her college ex and I should be a good husband and relax, I knew exactly what needed fixing. Our marriage was over, and it was time to make sure everyone knew why. I was under the hood of my Chevy in the driveway when her message came through. The irony wasn't lost on me. There I was, trying to repair something that actually could be saved, while she was halfway around the world destroying something that couldn't. Ran into Liam at the resort. What are the odds? Don't worry, darling, just catching up on old times. Be a good husband and relax while I'm gone. Miss you. The exclamation points were like tiny daggers. Elin never used exclamation points unless she was lying or drunk. Sometimes both. I wiped the grease from my hands and walked next door to Mrs. Verne's house. Eleanor Verne was 68, sharp as a razor, and had been watching our neighborhood drama unfold for decades. She also happened to be setting up for her weekly bridge night, complete with candles and wine. Eleanor, I said, knocking on her door. I need a favor. 20 minutes later, I was seated across from her at her dining table, raising a glass of wine toward my phone's camera. The candlelight made everything look romantic and intimate. Perfect. I snapped the selfie and typed my response to Elin. Relaxing perfectly with better company, darling. Having the most wonderful evening. By the way, I found your little folder on the laptop. I've already signed my half of the papers. Yours are waiting on the kitchen counter when you get back. Eleanor chuckled as I hit send. You always were too good for that Ice Queen, Felix. The thing about being an IT consultant is that you learn to see patterns others miss, and the pattern I'd been ignoring for months was suddenly crystal clear. Elin's business trips had become more frequent. Her phone was always face down. She'd started working out obsessively and buying new clothes, classic signs I'd been too trusting to acknowledge, but it was finding that hidden folder on her laptop that confirmed everything. Tucked away in a subfolder labeled Tax Documents 2019 were screenshots of text conversations, hotel receipts, and airline confirmations. All for two people. All dated months in advance. My wife hadn't run into anyone. She'd been planning this affair for half a year. I thanked Eleanor and walked back to my house, my mind racing. The smart play would be to wait, gather more evidence, contact a lawyer. The satisfying play would be something else entirely. Inside, I poured myself a real drink and opened Elin's laptop again. She'd always been careless with passwords, used the same one for everything, our wedding date, which now seemed like a cruel joke. The email trail was devastating, not just between her and Liam Harker, her college boyfriend who'd apparently remained very much in the picture, but between her and her best friend Maya Sandstrom. Maya worked at the same law firm, and their messages revealed a level of calculation that made my stomach turn. Felix suspects nothing, one message read. He's so buried in his little computer projects. By Christmas, this will all be over. Another. Liam says the Bali resort is perfect. No one we know goes there. We can plan everything without interruption. But it was Maya's response that really got me. Just be careful. If Felix finds out before you're ready, he could make things difficult. Men like him don't handle rejection well. Men like him. As if she knew me at all. I was still reading when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Your wife's car has been parked at the Marriott downtown every Thursday for 2 months. Thought you should know. A friend. The Marriott. That was where Liam was staying when he was in town for business. I grabbed my keys. The hotel parking garage was dimly lit and mostly empty at 10 p.m. on a Wednesday. But there, in the corner, was Liam's silver BMW with its vanity plates. Winner 1. Even his license plate was obnoxious. I circled the car slowly, taking pictures with my phone. The interior was immaculate except for a woman's earring on the passenger seat. One of Elin's favorites. From my keychain, I selected the sharpest key and considered my options. Slashing tires was too obvious, too juvenile, but a long, deep scratch along the driver's side door, that was just the right amount of petty. As I dragged the key along the pristine paint, I felt a satisfaction I hadn't experienced in months. When I finished, I pulled out a business card and wrote on the back, "Enjoy Bali, next time try a disguise." E's husband. I was sliding the card under his windshield wiper when I heard footsteps echoing through the garage. Security guard, probably. I walked casually toward the exit, but I could feel eyes on me. At the garage entrance, I glanced back. A security camera was pointed directly at the BMW. Had it caught me? The guard was walking toward Liam's car, flashlight in hand. I drove home with my heart pounding, but not from fear. For the first time in months, I felt alive. Elin wanted to play games? Fine. But she'd picked the wrong opponent. Back home, I decided to do some more digging. If Elin had been this careless with her laptop, what else might she have left lying around? In her gym bag, tucked inside a pocket I'd never noticed, was a second phone, a cheap burner with a cracked screen. When I powered it on, my hands were shaking. The message history was extensive. Months of conversations between Elin, Liam, and Maya. But these weren't just about the affair. They were about me. Felix is getting suspicious, Elin had written just last week. He asked about my Thursday meetings. Liam's response, "Oh, don't worry. If he finds out, we'll handle it. Maya has ideas." Maya's contribution made my stomach drop. I've been spreading some stories about Felix at the firm. Nothing major, just hints that he's been unstable lately. Drinking more, angry outbursts. If this goes south, we need people to believe he's the problem. They weren't just betraying me. They were actively working to destroy my reputation, setting me up as the villain in their story before I even knew there was a story. I scrolled through more messages, each one worse than the last. Plans to drain our joint accounts, discussions about getting a restraining order based on threats I'd never made, even speculation about whether I might do something dangerous when I found out. The final message thread was from earlier today, after Elin had landed in Bali. "It's done," sent Felix the text. "Maya, start phase 2 when you get back from court tomorrow. By the time I return, he should be completely discredited." Phase 2. What the hell was phase 2? I was about to find out. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in my kitchen, staring at the burner phone and trying to process the scope of their betrayal. This wasn't just an affair, it was a coordinated campaign to destroy my life. By morning, I had a plan. If they wanted to play dirty, I'd show them what dirty really looked like. My first stop was Eddie's boxing gym, the one place in town where I could think clearly. Eddie Torino had been training fighters for 40 years, and he'd become something like a father figure to me after my real dad passed. If anyone would understand what I was going through, it was Eddie. I found him in the back office, reviewing schedules and nursing his morning coffee. "You look like hell, Felix," he said without looking up. "Wife troubles? How'd you know?" "Same look every guy gets when his woman's playing games. What's the story?" I told him everything. The affair, the planning, the systematic character assassination. Eddie listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or grunting his disapproval. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and studied me. "So, what are you going to do about it?" "I'm going to make them pay." Wrong answer. Eddie stood up and walked to the window overlooking the gym floor. "You want to get even? I understand that. But getting even makes you feel good for about 5 minutes. Then you're still stuck with the same problems, plus new ones. Then what do you suggest?" "Don't get even, Felix. Get ahead. Way ahead. Make them wish they'd never started this game." Eddie's advice stuck with me as I drove to work, but focusing on my job was impossible. Every few minutes, I'd check the burner phone for new messages. Around noon, I got lucky. Maya had sent Elin a photo from the courthouse cafeteria. Phase 2 initiated. Had lunch with Judge Morrison's wife. Mentioned I was concerned about a colleague's husband who's been acting erratically. She's very sympathetic. Her first husband had anger issues. Judge Morrison, the same judge who handled most of the domestic cases in our county. Maya was poisoning the well, making sure that if this turned into a legal battle, I'd already be painted as the unstable, potentially dangerous husband. I screenshot the message and forwarded it to my personal phone, then deleted the evidence from the burner. If they were going to play this game, they needed to believe they were winning. That evening, I drove to Murphy's Bar and Grill, the local hangout where half the town gathered to drink and gossip. I wasn't much of a social drinker, but I needed to hear what people were saying about me. I didn't have to wait long. Maya was holding court at a corner table with 3 other women from various law offices around town. I took a seat at the bar where I could hear their conversation without being obvious about it. "I'm really worried about Elin," Maya was saying, her voice carrying just enough to be overheard. "Her husband's been acting so strange lately, paranoid, aggressive. She's afraid to be alone with him." "Has he threatened her?" asked Jennifer Walsh from the prosecutor's office. "Not directly, but there have been incidents, screaming matches, throwing things. Elin's been staying late at work just to avoid going home." Complete lies, but delivered with such conviction that I could see the other women buying every word. Maya had always been a good actress. "She should document everything," another woman suggested. "If he escalates, she'll need evidence for a restraining order." Maya nodded gravely. That's what I keep telling her. Men like Felix, when they snap, they really snap. I'd heard enough. I finished my beer and walked over to their table. "Evening, ladies," I said with my most charming smile. "Maya, I didn't expect to see you here. How's work treating you?" The conversation stopped cold. Maya's face went pale, but she recovered quickly. "Felix, what a surprise. I was just telling the girls how hard you've been working lately." "Is that what you were telling them?" I pulled out my phone and set it on the table, making sure the recording app was visible. "Because from where I was sitting, it sounded like you were discussing my marriage, which is interesting since Elin's in Bali right now, having a wonderful time catching up with old friends." The other women looked uncomfortable, but Maya held her ground. "I think you misunderstood." "Did I?" I leaned closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "Because I'd hate for there to be any misunderstandings about what's really going on here." Maya's eyes narrowed. She knew that I knew, but she couldn't say anything in front of witnesses. "Well," I said, straightening up and pocketing my phone, "I should let you ladies get back to your conversation. Maya, give my regards to your husband. I'm sure he'd love to hear about your evening out." I left them sitting there in stunned silence. The first shot had been fired in what was about to become an all-out war. The next morning brought a text from Elin. "Having the most amazing time. Liam and I have been reminiscing about college. He's such good company. Don't wait up for me when I get back. I'll probably be exhausted and go straight to Maya's to decompress." The audacity was breathtaking. She wasn't even trying to be subtle anymore. I spent the day researching Liam Harker. Social media made it easy. The man documented his entire life online. Expensive restaurants, luxury hotels, designer clothes, all funded by his consulting business, which seemed to specialize in helping companies optimize their financial structures. Interesting work for someone who'd declared bankruptcy just 3 years earlier. That evening, I drove back to the Marriott. Liam's BMW was gone, but I'd expected that. What I hadn't expected was the police report taped to the parking garage wall. "Vehicle vandalism reported. Security footage under review." So they had caught me on camera. But if they had clear footage, why hadn't the police contacted me yet? Either the video was inconclusive, or Liam hadn't pressed charges. Probably the latter. He wouldn't want to draw attention to why his car was parked at a hotel when he supposedly lived across town. I was walking back to my car when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Rourde, this is Detective Morrison with the City Police. We'd like to ask you a few questions about an incident at the Marriott Hotel." My heart started pounding, but I kept my voice steady. "What kind of incident?" "Vehicle vandalism. Your wife's friend Maya Sandstrom suggested you might have information about it." Of course she did. Maya was accelerating their timeline, trying to get me arrested before Elin returned from Bali. "I'd be happy to help however I can, Detective. When would you like to meet?" "How about tomorrow morning? 10 a.m. at the station?" "I'll be there." After I hung up, I sat in my car for a long time, thinking. They were closing the trap, but they'd made one crucial mistake. They assumed I'd react emotionally, do something stupid that would justify their narrative about my instability. Instead, I was going to give them exactly what they wanted, and use it to destroy them. The next morning, I arrived at the police station 15 minutes early, dressed in my best suit and carrying a folder of documents. Detective Morrison was younger than I'd expected, probably in his early 30s, with the tired look of someone who'd seen too much domestic drama. "Mr. Rourde, thank you for coming in. We're investigating some vandalism at the Marriott Hotel parking garage. A BMW belonging to Liam Harker was scratched, and we have security footage of someone matching your description in the area." I nodded thoughtfully. "I was at the Marriott 2 nights ago, Detective. I can explain why." "Please do." I opened my folder and pulled out printed copies of the text messages from Elin's burner phone. "I recently discovered that my wife has been having an affair with Mr. Harker. These messages detail their relationship and their meetings at the Marriott." Detective Morrison's expression shifted as he read through the messages. "Mr. Rourde, I have to ask, did you damage Mr. Harker's vehicle?" I was angry, Detective. I won't lie about that. When I saw his car in the parking garage, knowing what he'd been doing with my wife, I made a poor decision. I scratched his door and left a note. "You're admitting to the vandalism." "I am, and I'm prepared to pay for the damages and accept whatever consequences are appropriate. But I think you should know that this isn't just about an affair." I pulled out more documents, screenshots of Maya's messages about spreading rumors, her lunch with Judge Morrison's wife, the systematic campaign to destroy my reputation. "These people aren't just cheating, Detective. They're trying to frame me as dangerous and unstable. Maya Sandstrom has been telling people I'm violent, that my wife is afraid of me. She's the one who suggested you contact me about the car, isn't she?" Detective Morrison studied the documents for a long time. Finally, he looked up at me. "Mr. Rourde, this is a complicated situation. The vandalism is a misdemeanor, and given the circumstances, I doubt Mr. Harker will want to pursue charges. But I have to advise you to be very careful about how you handle this situation going forward." "I understand, Detective. I just want the truth to come out." As I left the police station, I felt a grim satisfaction. Maya had tried to use the law against me, but instead, I'd used it to establish the truth. Now there was an official record of their conspiracy, documented in a police report. Phase 2 of their plan had just backfired spectacularly. Elin returned from Bali on a Thursday, tanned and glowing with the kind of happiness I hadn't seen from her in years. She barely looked at me when she walked through the door, just mumbled something about being tired and needing to unpack. I was in my home office when I heard her scream. She'd found the divorce papers on the kitchen counter, along with printouts of every message from her burner phone. I'd arranged them chronologically, like a timeline of betrayal, with the most damaging ones highlighted in yellow. "Felix!" she shouted. "Get down here right now." I took my time walking to the kitchen. Elin was standing over the papers, her face flushed with anger and something that might have been fear. "What is this?" she demanded. "I think it's pretty self-explanatory. You want a divorce? I'm giving you one. I've even saved you the trouble of making me look like the bad guy. Though I have to say, you and Maya are much more creative than I gave you credit for. You went through my private messages. Your private messages were on a phone hidden in your gym bag, in my house, planning the destruction of my life. I'd say that makes them fair game." Elin's composure cracked slightly. "You don't understand the situation." "I understand it perfectly. You've been planning this affair for months. You and Maya have been systematically destroying my reputation. You've been setting me up to look unstable and dangerous so that when you finally pulled the trigger, everyone would be on your side. That's not... Judge Morrison's wife thinks I'm a violent husband, thanks to Maya's lunch conversation. Half the legal community thinks I'm having mental health issues. And Liam Harker thinks he's going to ride off into the sunset with my wife and half my assets." Elin sat down hard in one of the kitchen chairs. "How do you know about Judge Morrison's wife?" "I know about everything, Elin. The question is, what are we going to do about it?" For a moment, she looked like the woman I'd married 15 years ago, vulnerable, uncertain, almost human. Then her lawyer training kicked in. "If you try to use those messages in court, I'll claim you obtained them illegally. They'll be inadmissible." "You're probably right. Good thing I don't need them for court." "What's that supposed to mean?" I smiled. "It means I've learned a lot about strategy from you and Maya. The court of public opinion doesn't have rules about admissible evidence. That night, Elin stayed at Maya's house. I knew because I'd installed a GPS tracker on her car months ago, not out of suspicion, but because she had a habit of forgetting where she parked downtown. Now, it was proving useful for different reasons. I spent the evening creating social media accounts I'd never bothered with before. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all under my real name, all completely legitimate. Then I started posting. Not the messages. That would have been too obvious, too vindictive. Instead, I posted photos. Elin and Liam at various restaurants around town, taken from their own social media accounts over the past 6 months. I arranged them chronologically and added innocent captions. My wife networking with an old college friend, and Elin building professional relationships. To anyone who didn't know the context, they looked like business meetings. To anyone who did know, they looked like evidence of a long-term affair hidden in plain sight. The response was immediate. Comments started appearing within hours. "They look very comfortable together." "How often does she network with this particular friend? Isn't he the one who was at Murphy's last month talking about his business in town?" By morning, the posts had been shared dozens of times. Mills Lake was a small town, and gossip traveled fast. Maya called me at 7 a.m., furious. "Take those posts down, Felix, right now." "Which posts? The ones showing my wife conducting business with a professional colleague? I'm proud of her networking skills." You know exactly what you're doing." "I'm supporting my wife's career. Isn't that what good husbands do?" "This is harassment." "This is public information, Maya. Everything I posted came from their own social media accounts. If there's something inappropriate about the photos, maybe you should ask them why they posted them in the first place." She hung up on me. An hour later, Elin called. "Felix, we need to talk." "I'm listening." "Not on the phone. Meet me at Murphy's at noon." Murphy's was interesting choice. Public enough that she'd feel safe, but local enough that everyone would see us together. Either she was planning to make some kind of public reconciliation gesture, or she was setting up another scene for their narrative. I arrived first and chose a table in the center of the dining room where we'd be visible to everyone. Elin walked in 10 minutes later, followed closely by Maya and, to my surprise, Liam Harker. So it was going to be an ambush. They sat down across from me like a tribunal. Elin looked tired and stressed. Maya looked angry. Liam looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Felix," Elin began, "this has gone far enough. We're all adults here. We can handle this situation maturely." I agree completely. That's why I filed for divorce and why I'm not contesting the no-fault grounds. You want out? You're out. Simple and mature. "The social media posts need to stop," Maya interjected. "They're damaging Elin's professional reputation." "Are they? I thought they showed her networking skills." Liam finally spoke up. "Look, Felix, I know this is awkward for everyone, but Elin and I have history, and we've reconnected. It wasn't planned, it just happened." 6 months of hotel meetings just happened? We tried to handle this discreetly. You tried to handle this by destroying my reputation first, so I'd be too discredited to fight back. The conversation was getting heated, and I could see other diners starting to pay attention. Perfect. "That's not what happened," Elin said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Isn't it? Maya, didn't you tell Judge Morrison's wife that I was unstable? Didn't you spread rumors about me having anger issues?" Maya's face went red. "I was concerned about Elin's safety. Based on what? What have I ever done to make anyone think I was dangerous?" "You vandalized Liam's car." The entire restaurant went quiet. Maya realized too late that she'd just announced to the whole room that I'd caught my wife's boyfriend and taken action. "I scratched a door," I said calmly, "and I reported it to the police myself. Hardly the action of someone trying to hide his dangerous instability." I stood up and pulled out my wallet. "Lunch is on me, folks. Elin, the papers are on the kitchen counter whenever you're ready to sign them. Maya, give my regards to your husband. I'm sure he'd love to hear about how involved you've been in my marriage." I left them sitting there while the entire restaurant buzzed with conversation. By evening, the story would be all over town, but it would be the true story, not their version. When I got home, there was a message on my answering machine from my daughter Jennifer. She was away at college, but she'd apparently heard about the situation through social media. "Dad, I saw the posts. Are you okay? Is Mom really... are you guys getting divorced? Call me." Jennifer was 19, old enough to understand what was happening, but young enough to be devastated by it. I'd been so focused on fighting Elin and her conspirators that I'd forgotten about the collateral damage. I called her back immediately. "Dad, what's going on?" "Your mother and I are getting divorced, sweetheart. I'm sorry you had to find out through social media." "Is it true? About her and that guy?" "Yes, it's true." Jennifer was quiet for a long time. "Mom called me yesterday. She said you'd been acting strange, that you might try to turn me against her." "And what do you think?" "I think she's been lying to me for months. She told me she was working late, but her office building is dark by 8 p.m. I drove by once when I was in town." My daughter had been conducting her own investigation. The apple didn't fall far from the tree. "Jennifer, I want you to know that whatever happens between your mother and me, it's not your fault, and you don't have to choose sides. But if I did have to choose, then I'd want you to choose the truth. Always choose the truth." After we hung up, I sat in my empty house and tried to figure out my next move. Elin, Maya, and Liam were regrouping, probably planning their response to the restaurant scene. They'd underestimated me so far, but they wouldn't make that mistake again. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Saw what happened at Murphy's. Maya's not the only one with secrets. Check your email." In my inbox was a message from someone calling themselves a friend with an attachment. Financial records showing payments from Liam's consulting company to Maya's personal account. Thousands of dollars over the past year, with notations like research services and consulting fees. Maya wasn't just helping Elin have an affair, she was being paid for it. The corruption went deeper than I'd imagined, and I was just getting started. The financial records changed everything. Maya wasn't just a loyal friend helping with an affair, she was a paid conspirator. The payments from Liam's company totaled nearly $30,000 over 8 months, all categorized as consulting services, but with no legitimate work product to show for it. I spent the weekend digging deeper into Liam's business. His consulting company, Harker Strategic Solutions, claimed to help businesses optimize their financial structures. But when I traced the company's registration and tax filings, I found something interesting. Maya was listed as a strategic advisor, despite having no background in business consulting. What she did have was access to confidential client information at her law firm, including financial data for several companies that had later become Liam's clients. The pattern was clear. Maya was feeding him inside information, and he was paying her for it. On Monday morning, I made copies of everything and walked into the offices of Morrison, Walsh & Associates, Maya's law firm. I asked to speak with the managing partner, Thomas Morrison. Morrison was a distinguished man in his 60s, with silver hair and the kind of presence that commanded respect in courtrooms. He listened carefully as I explained the situation, reviewing the financial records and email evidence I'd compiled. Mr. Rourde, these are serious allegations. If Maya has been sharing confidential client information with an outside party for personal gain, that would be grounds for immediate termination and potential criminal charges. I understand that, Mr. Morrison. I'm not here to destroy anyone's career. I just want the truth to come out. What exactly are you asking me to do? Investigate. Quietly. If I'm wrong, no harm done. If I'm right, then you need to know what kind of liability your firm might be facing. Morrison agreed to look into it. As I left his office, I felt a mixture of satisfaction and dread. I was systematically dismantling their conspiracy, but I was also destroying lives. The question was whether they deserved it. That afternoon, Maya called me, her voice shaking with rage. You son of a... What did you tell Morrison? The truth? Something you should try sometime? You're going to regret this, Felix. You have no idea what you're messing with. Actually, I think I do. $30,000 from Liam's company over 8 months. Consulting fees for inside information about your law firm's clients. How much of that did you report on your taxes, Maya? The line went quiet. That's what I thought, I continued. You want to play hardball? Let's play. But remember, you started this game. She hung up without another word. That evening, Elin came home for the first time since Bali. She looked exhausted and defeated. Felix, we need to end this. It's gotten out of hand. I agree. Sign the divorce papers, and it's over. It's not that simple anymore. Maya's job is at risk. Liam's business is being investigated. People are getting hurt. People should have thought about that before they decided to destroy my life. Elin sat down across from me at the kitchen table. I never wanted it to go this far. What did you want, Elin? Really? I wanted out. I wanted to be happy. I wanted to be with someone who made me feel alive again. And you couldn't just ask for a divorce. You would have fought it. You would have made it ugly. So instead, you decided to make me look like a dangerous husband who couldn't be trusted with custody or assets. That was Maya's idea. She said it would be cleaner, easier for everyone. Easier for you, you mean. Elin started crying. Real tears, not the calculated kind she used in court. I know I hurt you. I know I handled this wrong. But please, Felix, call off whatever you're doing. Maya's husband left her this morning. Her career is over. Isn't that enough? What about Liam? He's distancing himself from both of us. Says the situation has become too complicated. So Liam was abandoning ship, leaving Elin and Maya to face the consequences alone. Typical. Where does that leave you? I asked. Alone? Unemployed, probably, once Morrison finishes his investigation. Divorced, starting over at 40. I looked at my wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, and felt something I hadn't expected. Pity. She'd gambled everything on a fantasy and lost. The papers are still on the counter, I said quietly. Sign them, and we can both start over. She nodded and walked to the kitchen counter. I watched her sign her name on each page, officially ending 15 years of marriage. For what it's worth, she said, handing me the papers, I did love you once. I know. I loved you too. After she left, I sat alone in my kitchen, holding the signed divorce papers. I should have felt victorious, but instead I felt empty. The war was over, but there were no winners, just casualties. My phone rang. It was Detective Morrison. Mr. Rourde, I wanted to give you an update on the Harker situation. He's agreed to pay for the damage to his vehicle and won't be pressing charges. Case closed. Thank you, Detective. There is one more thing. We've received some information about potential financial crimes involving Ms. Sandstrom and Mr. Harker. I can't go into details, but I wanted you to know that your cooperation has been helpful. After I hung up, I realized that Maya's prediction had been right about one thing. I had no idea what I was messing with. The financial crimes investigation would probably uncover more than just the payments to Maya. Liam's entire business model seemed to be built on insider information and questionable practices. But that was no longer my problem. I'd gotten what I wanted, the truth and my freedom. The next morning, I found a note slipped under my front door. You won. I hope it was worth it. Maya's handwriting was shaky, defeated. According to the neighborhood gossip network, Mrs. Verne was an excellent source. Maya had been suspended from the law firm pending investigation. Her husband had filed for divorce and was seeking full custody of their children. Liam had disappeared entirely. His consulting company was closed and his apartment was empty. Elin was staying with her sister in another state, probably trying to figure out how to rebuild her life. I should have felt satisfied, but instead I felt like I'd won a war by burning down the entire battlefield. Everyone was destroyed, including me. That afternoon, Jennifer called. "Dad, I heard about Mom signing the papers. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, sweetheart. How are you handling all this?" "I'm angry at her, if I'm being honest. Not just for cheating, but for lying to me about you. She tried to make me think you were the problem. People do desperate things when they're cornered. That doesn't excuse it. Dad, I want you to know that I'm proud of you for fighting back. A lot of men would have just rolled over and let themselves be destroyed." "I'm not sure fighting back was the right choice. A lot of people got hurt. People who deserved to be hurt. They tried to destroy you first. Maybe she was right. Maybe this was justice. But it didn't feel like justice. It felt like mutual destruction." That evening, I walked down to Mills Lake and sat on the dock where Elin and I used to watch sunsets during the early years of our marriage. The water was calm, reflecting the orange and pink sky like a mirror. My phone buzzed with one final message from Elin. "I'm sorry for everything. You deserved better than what I gave you. Take care of yourself." I typed back, "Take care of yourself too." Then I deleted her number and threw the burner phone into the lake. The war was over, and it was time to figure out how to live with the aftermath. 3 weeks after the divorce papers were signed, I thought the worst was behind us. I was wrong. I was working in my home office on a Tuesday evening when my phone rang. Jennifer's number, but when I answered, it was Elin's voice, shaky and desperate. "Felix, I need your help." "Elin, why are you calling from Jennifer's phone?" "They took mine. Felix, I'm in trouble. Real trouble." "What kind of trouble?" "The FBI raided Liam's office yesterday. They found everything, the payments to Maya, the client information, all of it. They think I was involved." I sat down hard in my desk chair. "Were you involved?" "Not in the business stuff, no. But I knew Maya was getting money from Liam. I thought it was just for helping us keep the affair secret, not for... whatever this is." "Where are you?" "I'm at Jennifer's apartment. Felix, they want to question me tomorrow. My lawyer says I could be looking at conspiracy charges, maybe racketeering, if they can prove the payments were part of a larger scheme." The irony was overwhelming. In trying to destroy their conspiracy, I'd uncovered a much larger criminal enterprise. Maya and Liam hadn't just been planning my downfall, they'd been running a sophisticated insider trading operation using confidential client information from the law firm. "What do you want from me, Elin?" "I need you to know that I never meant for any of this to happen. The affair, yes. The lies about you, yes. But I swear I didn't know about the criminal stuff." "I believe you." "Do you? Really?" I thought about it. Elin was many things, selfish, manipulative, calculating, but she wasn't a criminal. She'd been used by Maya and Liam just like I had, only in a different way. "Yes, I believe you." "There's something else. Maya's trying to make a deal with the FBI. She's claiming that you were involved, that you knew about the payments and helped plan everything." "That's ridiculous." "Is it? Felix, you knew about the payments before anyone else. You're the one who brought the evidence to Morrison. Maya's lawyer is arguing that you were part of the conspiracy from the beginning, and that you only came forward when you realized you were going to get caught." I felt the room spinning around me. In my quest for revenge, I'd gathered evidence so thoroughly that it now looked like inside knowledge. My detailed understanding of their financial arrangements could be interpreted as participation rather than investigation. "They're going to arrest me, aren't they?" "I don't know. Maybe. Felix, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for all of this." I hung up and immediately called a lawyer. Then I called Detective Morrison, who confirmed my worst fears. I was now a person of interest in a federal financial crimes investigation. The next morning, I woke up to FBI agents at my door with a search warrant. They confiscated my computers, my phones, my financial records, and boxes of documents related to the divorce. My neighbors watched from their windows as federal agents carried evidence boxes out of my house. Mrs. Verne came over after they left. "Felix, what in heaven's name is going on?" "I'm not sure, Eleanor, but I think I may have outsmarted myself." The investigation moved quickly. Within a week, Maya had been arrested and charged with wire fraud, conspiracy, and racketeering. Liam was arrested in Florida, where he'd been hiding out under an assumed name. His consulting business was revealed to be a front for a multi-million-dollar insider trading scheme involving dozens of companies and law firms across 3 states. And I was caught in the middle of it. My lawyer, David Chen, was brutally honest about my situation. Felix, the evidence Maya's providing makes you look like a co-conspirator. She's claiming you were the mastermind, that you recruited her and Liam to gather information from the law firm. Your detailed knowledge of their financial arrangements supports her story. But I only learned about the payments after I discovered the affair. Can you prove that? Can you establish a timeline that shows you discovered the affair before you learned about the money? I thought about it. The truth was, I'd been so focused on gathering evidence that I hadn't been careful about documenting when I learned what. To an outside observer, my investigation could easily look like a criminal covering his tracks. David, I need to know something. If Maya's telling the truth about me being the mastermind, why would I have exposed the whole thing to Morrison? Her story is that you got nervous when the affair became public. You decided to burn down the operation and frame her and Liam to save yourself. It was diabolically clever. Maya was using my own revenge tactics against me, painting my evidence gathering as criminal conspiracy and my exposure of their crimes as self-preservation. The worst part was that it was almost believable. 2 weeks later, I was indicted on federal conspiracy charges. The government's case was that I had orchestrated the entire insider trading scheme, using Maya's position at the law firm and Liam's consulting business as fronts. My motive, according to the prosecution, was to generate income to support my failing marriage and fund a lifestyle I couldn't afford on my IT consultant salary. The evidence was circumstantial, but damning. I had detailed knowledge of the financial arrangements between Maya and Liam. I had access to Elin's communications and could have been coordinating the entire operation through her. I had been the one to expose the scheme, which could be interpreted as an attempt to control the narrative when things went wrong. My trial was scheduled for 6 months later. In the meantime, I was released on bail but had to surrender my passport and submit to regular check-ins with a probation officer. My reputation in Mills Lake was completely destroyed, not as the dangerous husband Maya had tried to paint me as, but as a white-collar criminal who had manipulated everyone around him. The irony was perfect and terrible. In trying to expose their conspiracy against me, I had created the appearance of a much larger conspiracy with me at the center. Jennifer came home from college to support me during the trial. She was the only person who still believed in my innocence, and even she sometimes looked at me with uncertainty. Dad, tell me the truth. Did you know about the money before you found out about the affair? No, sweetheart. I swear to you, I didn't know anything until after I discovered your mother's burner phone. Then why does Maya's story sound so convincing? Because I was too good at investigating them. I learned too much, too quickly. It looks like inside knowledge instead of detective work. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Maya testified against me for 2 full days, describing in detail how I had supposedly recruited her and Liam, planned the insider trading scheme, and then betrayed them when I got scared. Her testimony was compelling, detailed, and completely false. Liam, facing 30 years in federal prison, corroborated Maya's story in exchange for a reduced sentence. Even Elin, granted immunity for her testimony, had to admit that I had seemed to know an unusual amount about Maya and Liam's financial arrangements. My defense was simple. I was a betrayed husband who had investigated his wife's affair and uncovered a criminal conspiracy by accident. But the prosecution painted me as a master manipulator who had used my wife's affair as cover for a sophisticated financial crime. The jury deliberated for 4 days. When they returned with their verdict, I was standing next to David Chen, holding Jennifer's hand, preparing for the worst. On the charge of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, we find the defendant not guilty. On the charge of racketeering, we find the defendant not guilty. On the charge of money laundering, we find the defendant not guilty. I collapsed into my chair, overwhelmed with relief. The jury had seen through Maya's lies and recognized the truth. I was a victim, not a perpetrator. After the trial, the jury foreman approached me in the hallway. Mr. Rourde, I want you to know that we never really believed you were the mastermind. Maya's story was too convenient, too neat. Real criminals don't usually expose their own crimes. Then why did you deliberate for 4 days? Because we wanted to be absolutely sure. Your wife and her friends put you through hell, and we didn't want to add to it unless we were certain you were guilty. Outside the courthouse, Jennifer hugged me tightly. It's over, Dad. It's finally over. But it wasn't over. Maya was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Liam got 12 years. Elin, who had cooperated with the investigation, received probation and community service. And I was left to rebuild my life in a town where everyone knew my name and my story. Some people believed in my innocence. Others were convinced I had simply been too smart to get convicted. 6 months after the trial, I sold my house in Mills Lake and moved to a different state. Jennifer transferred to a college closer to my new home. Elin sent me a letter apologizing for everything and wishing me well, but I never responded. I started a new IT consulting business under a different name in a town where nobody knew my history. It was a quiet life, peaceful in a way that my marriage had never been. Sometimes, late at night, I wondered if I could have handled things differently. If I had just walked away when I discovered the affair, would everyone's lives have been better? Would Maya and Liam still be free? Would Elin still have her career? But then I remembered what Eddie had told me at the boxing gym. Don't get even, Felix. Get ahead. I had gotten ahead. I had survived their conspiracy, exposed their crimes, and rebuilt my life on my own terms. It had cost me everything, my marriage, my home, my reputation, but I was free. And sometimes freedom is worth any price.